Welcome to the deep dive. We get straight to the insights you can use. You specifically asked us to look into something really common, didn't you? Those communication breakdowns, trust issues sometimes between schools and parents, especially in programs focused on serving African American communities. We've all seen how little misunderstandings can spiral, right? Affecting the kids we're trying to help, like that example of Unique in Atlanta, that administrator dealing with, well, a communication tug of war. So, our mission today: explore how programs like yours can really build stronger bridges with parents, how to genuinely empower them.
Exactly. Because what if there was a solid way, a proven way, to untangle all that? So that, the commitment to the child's learning the source, calls it educational love, can actually flow freely from parents to teachers to the kids. And that's where AYA Educational Institute's training comes in. It's called SOCUS 5, 5 core modules. And they've got, 27 years showing this works, helping parents get more involved academically, helping everyone turn conflict into, clarity and closeness. That feels like a much better way, especially for programs really invested in those community ties.
That does sound transformative. So it's less about putting out fires and more about building something solid from the start.
Correct.
Proactive. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's look at these 5 modules. What tools do they offer? All right, first up, Module 1, Education for What? Navigating a changing world. This jumps right in, doesn't it? Addressing how fast everything's shifting. Supreme Court stuff, tech, the economy, even like the rule of law. How does Focus 5 help parents process all that? Especially thinking about youth and African American communities facing unique challenges and chances.
Well, the real power here, I think, is helping parents move past just reacting. You know, it's about empowering them to actively shape their child's path through all this change. The core idea they talk about is roots and wings. It's a great image. Roots to ground kids in who they are, their heritage, their values, so vital, particularly for African American children. And then the wings equip them to, fly, to innovate and succeed in this world that keeps changing. And it's not just a one-off thing. It's a monthly module with discussions, presentations, all focused on what's relevant now and tomorrow for their specific kids and families. It really helps parents see education beyond just the school walls, giving them a kind of roadmap for the long haul.
That's a really important distinction, not just coping with today, but preparing for, well, who knows what future. Which leads right into Module 2, Parents as Storytellers and Story Healers Reclaiming Narratives. That story about Amanda in Houston.
Wow.
Failing algebra because she thought, I'm just bad at math, my dad is too. It really shows how these broken family stories, as the program calls them, can hold kids back. Unintentionally, of course. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many kids are stuck, not because of ability, but because of a story they inherited?
Absolutely. It's like this invisible barrier, passed down without anyone even realizing it sometimes. And that's why this module is, potentially life-changing. The program points out that lesson plans, charts, all that school stuff, is vital, obviously. But it can be dwarfed by family stories. Utterly. So this module teaches parents how to be story healers and storytellers, how to actively turn those negative narratives around. Amanda's story wasn't just theory, it was real. Her parents, grandparents, aunts started sharing different stories about math, stories about pushing through, maybe not instant success, but effort. And it changed her whole outlook. She started doing really well, even better than some family members had. Think about that for communities like African American families who might have faced educational hurdles historically.
Yeah.
Using Once Upon a Time to heal and open academic doors. That's powerful stuff.
It really is. So for a parent who maybe grew up with one of those broken stories themselves, how does Focus 5 help them actually do that for their child? Is it just knowing about it, or are there specific things they learn?
Well, it's very practical, not just awareness. It's about actively re-narrating. Parents learn specific ways to frame past struggles, maybe their own or their families, as learning experiences, to find and highlight those little wins that maybe got forgotten. It's about shifting the focus, from we can't to look what we overcame, or here's how we can approach this, and then modeling that new story consistently. It's an active reframing, really drawing on cultural strengths and resilience.
Okay, active reframing. I like that. That takes us to Module 3, Parents as First Educators. Skills and tools acknowledging the unsung role. This part brings up some interesting history, how African ancestors seem to know instinctively what science is catching up to now that learning starts even before birth. The source mentions Jomo Kenyatta's book, Facing Mount Kenya, describing mothers singing family names to unborn babies. Ancient wisdom right there.
Absolutely. Parents are the first teachers, no question. And the key insight in Module 3, I think, is that when you formally recognize and empower that role, which often goes totally unacknowledged.
Yeah.
You start to dismantle that whole blame game culture that can pop up. Because that's the problem, isn't it? This crucial role isn't really seen or valued in many school settings, not until there's an issue. Then, yeah, fingers start pointing, creates tension instead of teamwork. This module flips that, helps parents truly see and appreciate the massive job they've already done, just getting their child ready for the world. And then building on that foundation, it gives them more support, practical skills to enhance what they're already doing, big picture. It shifts the whole vibe from potential blame to mutual respect, recognizing that incredible parenting journey that starts, like you said, even before birth. And that really resonates, I think, for African-American parents whose history of educating their kids, often against huge odds, is just profound.
That shift sounds huge. From blame to acknowledgement. But okay, what about parents who feel maybe a bit intimidated by schools or overwhelmed? What's the biggest barrier? Focus 5 helps them tackle to really step into that first educator space with confidence.
Yeah, that's a good question. Often it's that feeling of, like, I'm not qualified, or the school knows everything, that sense of inadequacy. Focus 5 chips away at that by first celebrating what they are doing, highlighting their inherent wisdom and strength. Then it builds confidence with concrete strategies. Simple things sometimes, how to make home a learning zone, how to connect home activities to school stuff, and, maybe most importantly, how to speak up for their child effectively. Advocating from a place of knowing their child best, not just reacting out of fear. It turns that anxiety into, okay, I can do this, I have a role here.
Okay, turning anxiety into active participation. Building on that, we get to Module 4. Parents as learning directors shaping the educational journey. So not just first educators, but always learning directors. I like that framing. The idea that parents are guiding the whole journey and essentially granting educational privileges to teachers, choosing to partner with the school because they believe it aligns with their family's goals. That's a different way of thinking about it.
It really is. It shifts the power dynamic, doesn't it? This module is all about fostering that proactive leadership mindset, moving parents from just, receiving whatever the school offers to being active architects. It gets them asking some really key questions, ideally together with the school. Okay, what specifically do I want this school, this class to nurture in my child? Defining those core things. Then how does the school actually complement our family's mission, our values? Checking that alignment. And it goes both ways. What can I learn from the school? And what can I teach them? That builds mutual respect. And this one's critical. Okay, when things aren't perfectly aligned, because they won't always be, how do we teach our child to navigate those differences? That's real-world skill building. It's just fascinating, that whole shift. Parents as co-creators, making sure the education fits their family's vision, culturally and academically.
Co-creators, yeah, that feels much more partnership-oriented, articulating the vision and then working with the school. Okay, now Module 5, parents as WHB effective communicators healing relationships. This one feels very real-world. You think about parents enrolling a child, Sundiata nervous, Teresa excited about Ola starting a program. It's never neutral, is it? There's hope, maybe fear, joy. It's a big deal. And let's face it, bumps happen. Kid-to-kid stuff, student-teacher issues, parent-teacher friction. It's just part of it.
It absolutely is. And the ideal, which this module works towards, is parents and teachers basically speaking the same language on how to handle those bumps, how to resolve things, how to heal. And this module uses a specific tool set, apparently time-tested, called Warriors, Healers, and Builders, WHB. It digs into communication skills that specifically acknowledge the impact of historical oppression on how people communicate, especially within, say, African-American communities, how it can sometimes create these misdirections in emotional responses, like unconscious patterns, maybe getting defensive quickly or shutting down or reacting bigger than the situation, warrants things rooted in those historical experiences.
Okay, so WHB Warriors, Healers, Builders. How does that translate into actual skills?
Right, so it gets specific. First, teaching kids themselves how to flip negative self-talk. Like if society sends messages like, you're not good at X, flipping it to something positive, like I'm learning this, or I'm a problem solver, building that internal resilience. Second, helping parents become more powerful, authentic communicators, grounded in their own culture, using WHB practically. So maybe the warrior part helps them advocate clearly and firmly when needed. The healer helps find common ground and mend bridges. The builder focuses on creating new solutions, strengthening the whole school-family relationship. And third, modeling for their kids how to untie those knots, smooth out conflicts in family and school relationships, creating that culture of talking things through. It loops back to that earlier point, doesn't it? How many kids might be held back by stories or communication patterns that we as the adults actually have the power to change?
Exactly. That's the core question. And this module seems to provide really concrete tools, not just saying communicate better, but how. Turning those inevitable bumps into chances for clarity, for getting closer, instead of letting them create lasting walls. Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive into AYA's Focus 5, that core message really stands out, doesn't it? If parents are empowered, their children will be empowered, and so will your educational program. It sounds simple, but it's profound. That cycle starts by really seeing and supporting the power parents already have.
Absolutely. And seeing how programs like Focus 5 have made such a difference in communication, academics, just overall well-being.
It makes you think.
Right. For you listening, running your own program, what's maybe one small concrete step you could take this week? Just one thing to start building a deeper partnership with your parents, really recognizing them intentionally as those first and ongoing educators. That feels like a really good place to start building those truly strong learning communities.